So I wanted to come on here and do a review of the TaleSpin episode A Star is Torn, which is a play on the movie title A Star is Born. And basically, this is the episode that pretty much, if you want to point to any episode in the TaleSpin 65 episode run that would truly indicate that Baloo and Rebecca were more than just, best friends, employee and employer, that their relationship went further than that. This is the episode that would do that. Because this episode pretty much, without, straight out saying it to your face, but doing it very, not so subtly, but not saying it straight out to your face, this episode pretty much told you, yeah, these two are romantically involved with each other, or at least becoming romantically involved with each other as basically boyfriend and girlfriend. And, the way you see it throughout this episode is it just plays it from beginning to end on every beat that builds, on that point, I mean, the way it starts and everything with, the dinner date not going the way Rebecca would want, but then, kind of finding humor in it and all that and talking things out very, friendly-like and not so angrily like Rebecca would be known to do with Baloo when he messes up, but doing it in a very gentle, kind-hearted way, to the point that Baloo basically said, hey, if you're not careful, people might mistake us as, being friends. Now, when I first initially saw the episode, maybe it was me, I'm sure I'm not the only one though, I thought he said the line, of, hey, if you're not careful, someone might mistake us as more than friends, kind of indicating that, hey, there's something there. And then Rebecca's response, of maybe we are, and then leaning her head on his, shoulder, it's like you can't get any more obvious, than that moment right at the beginning of the episode. And then, the way Rebecca, reacts throughout the episode when Baloo becomes smitten with the celebrity Kitten L'Amour. I think that's her name, Kitten L'Amour, or Kitty L'Amour, and everything. The way she reacts, the being protective, being jealous, and all that. Even with Baloo kind of saying what he says at the end and all that. And it's like if you can't get any more evident, in my opinion, if you can't get more evident than this episode and all the beats that are played throughout, especially from Rebecca's point of view, and then the way Baloo saves her and everything, that ending, it's like, come on. It's like we get it. You're not straight out telling the younger kid audience flat out that, yeah, they're now an item. You're not saying that. You're not saying they're boyfriend and girlfriend. But the way you're playing it out by saying that they're good friends, quote unquote, really good friends, the way you're playing it out is not so very subtle. And anybody that grew up on that episode, nowadays, like myself and many others, we could see that. And look, there's no shame. There is no shame, if you will, in wanting to make these two an item. I mean, I get it. It's kind of like, let's say, with some other shows and, other Disney afternoon shows and all that. You don't want to come out and straight out say that, this is what we have planned, or that's what we have planned, or here's what we want to do. You don't want to do that, flat out, because if you do, you're kind of afraid that it's either going to turn people off, or you're afraid that, people might like it and they're going to want more. And, you only have a limited amount of time, episode-wise, to, either give them what they want, or you're afraid that basically with that limited time, nobody's going to want to see anymore because you pretty much screwed things up. So there's various examples throughout. I mean, I've always been the belief, in my opinion, because I feel it's not so subtle, honestly, that Dale and Gadget was the way they were going to go and rescue Rangers, especially if they'd done the first real movie in the early to mid-90s. To me, I think that was the direction they were going to go. I always believed, whether people like it or not. In fact, one person even agreed in a comment. That, yeah, basically this did make sense. I've always had that firm belief of, of Cubby and Sonny from Gummy Bears. When they get older, if they were to be aged up, in Gummy Bears, that they would have been together. The point I'm getting at is I understand and I get that you don't always want to straight out, indicate or hint, at something that's going to, potentially happen, between between certain characters or in the story. You don't want to do that straight out. But with Baloo and Rebecca, it's like this episode. I mean, if there wasn't any other episodes before and after it that hinted, at them being more than just best friends and employee and employer. If there wasn't any other episodes before and after this, pretty much this episode, pretty much answered all the questions, in my opinion. It answered all the questions that fans had been wanting to know. It answered them straight out. And yeah, I'll give credit. You didn't do it like straight out in the face, if you will, but you did it, pretty much in a very not so subtle way of saying, yeah, Baloo and Rebecca are an item now. Because the way you put it, especially for the kid audience at that time, you're saying, yeah, Baloo and Rebecca are really good friends. They're really good friends. Look how close and cuddly they are with each other. They're really good friends. It's like, come on. It's like, come on, seriously. You're not fooling anybody. And this episode pretty much, in my opinion, solidified, certified, officialized every answer to that question. And I know people might debate me on it, but I don't even think if they go back and watch this episode, you can find it on Disney Plus, as well as on the complete TaleSpin DVD series set. You go back and watch this episode, there is no denying exactly what they were doing here. No denying whatsoever what they were exactly doing here. Because if I could see it, everybody else could see it. And that's a fact. If I could see it, everybody else could see it. But yeah, this episode to me, in closing, I know I sound like I rambled a bit here, but this episode in closing to me, pretty much from beginning to end, was their own not so very subtle way of telling you and me as kids at that time when it first came out, and even kids nowadays that are probably watching it for the first time, this episode in a not so very subtle way told you that Baloo and Rebecca were boyfriend and girlfriend now. End of discussion. And again, if you want any more evidence, there are episodes that came after and before this that pretty much hint at that fact. They pretty much hint at that fact, but not so much as what this episode did, especially from Rebecca's point of view. So that's all I can really say on it, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video if you will, guys. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube. You can find all my podcasts at all your favorite audio and video podcast affiliates. I think you will enjoy what I have to say. Also, guys, check me out at the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. Also, check out the Patreon. Got some content up there you guys will like under the $3 and $5 tier. Also, guys, check me out at Venmo. And check me out at Venmo and Cash App. It would help me out tremendously if you could go there. And also, guys, like I said, check out the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But, guys, I do recommend, if you've not seen this episode, and I'm sure you have, Excuse me. But if you've not, or if you want to see it again to see exactly what I and everybody else pretty much have pointed out as to be the fact of Disney using this episode as, as a not so subtle way, not so very subtle way, I should put it, of saying Baloo and Rebecca are now more than just best friends and more than just employer, that they're now boyfriend and girlfriend. If you want evidence or you want proof, and you go back and see this episode. If you've not seen it, see it for the first time. You'll see what we're talking about. If you have seen it, I'm sure you have, see it again. If you have any doubt, and you'll see exactly what we mean. Look at the moments that we're pointing out, and you'll see exactly why I look at it this way. And I'm not the only one. And also, like I said, I don't think any of the writers that worked on the episode, I don't think any of them would disagree with me on it, because some of them have said it themselves. But let me know what your thoughts are. Go back and watch it if you want any proof of what I'm talking about, because I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me on it. But that's all I could say, guys. So until next time, I'll talk to you all later.